Welcome to r/NuclearRevenge, where justice isn't just served cold. It's served deep-fried, buried in concrete, and lit on fire. This isn't petty revenge. This is the kind of story where someone crosses a line so deeply there's no going back. The man in this story? He crossed that line. He thought he was smart, careful, untouchable. He thought no one would believe the kids, that the parents were too powerless, that prison would protect him. He was wrong on every level. This is a story about a family that refused to be broken, a story about pain, patience, and payback so intense it followed a man behind bars and made sure he never walked back out. You hurt children? You don't just get caught, you die in prison. Her name is Elena Cruz. Single mom, full-time nurse, fierce, patient, and always running on caffeine and instinct. She's the kind of woman who never complains, never quits, and never forgets a face. Elena lives in a modest duplex in a working-class neighborhood just outside of San Antonio, Texas. The kind of place where neighbors know your kids' names, barbecues happen on Sundays, and everyone pretends they're safer than they really are. The paint on her porch is chipped. The roof leaks in heavy rain. But it's home. And it's where she's raising her two kids, Maya and Lucas. Maya's 9, Lucas is 7. They love reading superhero comics, drawing sidewalk chalk monsters, and watching scary movies they're definitely too young for. Elena works nights at the hospital, so when she's home, every second counts. Pancakes for dinner, dance parties in the kitchen, bedtime stories with voices. The whole deal. For a while, life is good. Not perfect, but safe, stable. That's what makes what happens next so hard to swallow. There's a neighbor down the street, quiet, neat lawn, drives a silver pickup. No one knows much about him except that he works from home, doesn't wave at the kids, and always seems to be watching through the blinds. His name doesn't matter yet. What matters is that for months, he was patient, careful, invisible. And Elena? She had no idea a monster lived 5 houses away. Maya and Lucas were the kind of kids you couldn't help but love. Maya was the talker, funny, whip-smart, always asking big questions like, "Do fish sleep?" Or, "What if clouds are just shy whales?" She made friends wherever she went and would give you her last gummy worm without hesitation. Lucas was quieter, more sensitive. He clung to Elena when she came home from work like he'd been holding his breath all night. He loved building things, Legos, forts, cardboard time machines, and hated loud noises, especially yelling. Despite Elena's long shifts and the stress of single parenting, their home was full of love. The kids played in the front yard almost every afternoon while Elena watched from the porch with a glass of iced tea, exhausted but content. Every now and then, neighbors would smile as they passed, complimenting Maya's drawings on the sidewalk or asking what Lucas was building today. It was the kind of life that didn't feel remarkable while it was happening, just peaceful, ordinary, good. Until one summer afternoon, when Maya came inside looking confused. She told her mom, "That man with the glasses offered us juice from his cooler. He said it was okay if we didn't tell you." Elena's blood went cold. That moment was the start of something that would rip their peaceful world apart. And the man with the cooler? He had no idea that the mother he just messed with was about to go nuclear. His name was Dale Peterson, early 50s. Lived alone, worked from home, supposedly in IT security, though no one had ever seen him go to a job. He kept to himself, didn't make eye contact, and mowed his lawn every Saturday like clockwork. Always wore the same old baseball cap, even in the rain. Dale gave off a vibe. You know the kind. The sort that makes your stomach twist, even if you can't explain why. He wasn't loud. He wasn't rude, But something about the way his eyes lingered just a second too long on kids made the hair on Elena's neck stand up. At first, it was little things. He started appearing during playtime more often, always just outside, watering plants that didn't need watering, pretending to sweep his porch while watching. Maya said he gave her a juice box as a treat. Lucas told Elena he felt weird when Dale smiled at him. Elena didn't want to overreact. Lots of people are awkward with kids, right? But when she caught Dale standing behind the fence one afternoon, not moving, just watching, she knew something was wrong. She reported it to the HOA. They shrugged, told her to keep her kids on her side of the street. Unless he's done something, there's not much we can do. No proof, no charges, just a gut feeling. But Elena, she trusted her gut, and she was about to prove she was right, in the worst way possible. 2 weeks later, Elena got home from a double shift. She was bone-tired, head pounding, feet aching. She opened the front door and found Maya on the couch, pale and shaking, a blanket wrapped tightly around her. Lucas wouldn't speak. He was curled up next to her, holding her hand. Elena dropped her bag and ran over. "What happened?" Maya didn't answer right away, just pointed to the window. Elena looked outside and saw Dale's silver truck driving slowly down the street, then turning the corner. After 5 minutes of coaxing and calming, Maya finally spoke. "He tried to make us come into his garage." Elena's heart stopped. "He said he had a new game, with a secret prize. He grabbed Lucas's hand, but I screamed and pulled him away. Then he just smiled and said he was joking." Elena could barely breathe. She called the police. They came, took statements, talked to the kids, went next door. Dale denied everything, of course. Said the kids were confused. Said he was cleaning out the garage and left the door open. The officers came back and told Elena there wasn't enough evidence. No cameras, no witnesses, no physical contact they could prove. They filed a report and left. That night, Elena didn't sleep. She sat in the dark, watching the window, shotgun across her lap. She wasn't just afraid, she was furious, and fury in Elena's hands was about to become something dangerous. The next day, Elena skipped sleep. She bought 3 motion detection cameras, hidden models with night vision. She mounted them around her house, one by the driveway, one facing Dale's property, and one by the back gate. Then, she told her kids to never go outside without her. 3 days later, she caught him. The camera picked up Dale standing across the street at 1:17 a.m. Not walking, not pacing, just standing, facing her house, for 23 minutes. Then, he moved to her driveway, looked in her car, walked past her porch. Elena brought the footage to the police. They told her it was suspicious but not illegal. Unless he broke in or physically harmed someone, their hands were tied. So she dug deeper. She started talking to other parents in the neighborhood. Quiet conversations, playground whispers. That's when it started to spill out. One mom said her son came home with a candy bar he didn't recognize. Another kid stopped riding his bike near Dale's house because he didn't like the man with the weird dog leash. Someone else swore they'd seen Dale burning something in his fire pit at night. Pictures, maybe? Then, Elena made a discovery that broke her. She searched Dale's name online, buried in court records from another state, sealed juvenile charges, old enough to be nearly forgotten. He had been convicted of inappropriate contact with a minor 20 years ago. Records sealed, moved states, new identity. Elena stared at the screen, shaking. This man was a predator. He was watching her children, and no one was going to stop him. No one except her. Elena felt a brief spark of hope when Dale was arrested. It wasn't much, but at least he was behind bars. At least he couldn't keep watching, couldn't keep lurking around her kids. The trial came fast, faster than expected. Dale sat there, cold and calculating, his lawyer defending him with the same rehearsed calm. There were testimonies, some damning, others weak. The police reports, Elena's footage, the statements from other parents. It painted a grim picture. But when the verdict came, Elena's heart sank. Dale was convicted of harassment and trespassing. A few months in county jail, a small fine, and a slap on the wrist. No charges for what he really was, no deeper investigation into his past. Just a probation sentence and a warning. Elena felt the anger swelling inside her, threatening to consume her. Her children, once full of life, now avoided windows and doors. Maya wouldn't sleep without a light on. Lucas wouldn't go outside without a grown-up. They were afraid. Their world was shattered. It wasn't enough. It would never be enough. To Elena, the justice system had failed them. All this effort, all this pain, and for what? A few months behind bars for a man who didn't even flinch? The worst part? He would be free again. Soon. And Elena knew there was nothing else she could do. At least, that's what she thought. But someone else was thinking and planning. The day after the trial, Elena was sitting at her kitchen table, staring blankly at a cup of coffee that had long gone cold. The weight of it all pressed down on her chest. She couldn't shake the feeling that Dale would do this again. And next time, it might not just be her kids. Then her phone rang. It was her brother, Nick, former Navy, now living off the grid after doing a stint in prison for assault. Nick had always been a protector, someone who lived life on his own terms, and always had a story about people who crossed him. His last words to her before going quiet for several months were cryptic. "If you ever need something, you call me. No questions asked." "Nick?" she said, trying to sound casual, but her voice betrayed the exhaustion. "How are you?" "I'm fine," Nick replied, the deep voice of a man who'd been through a lot. "I heard about Dale. What are you going to do about it?" Elena froze. How did he know? She hadn't spoken to him about any of this. He didn't wait for her to respond. "I've got connections, Elena. People who can make sure he never bothers you again." Nick wasn't talking about lawyers or the police. No, he was talking about a different kind of justice. A kind of justice he'd seen before in his darker days. And Elena didn't know how, but something inside her told her that Nick was going to make sure Dale paid in ways that no court system ever would. Days later, Elena sat on the edge of her bed, phone in hand, staring at the screen. Nick had been making calls, checking into things, contacting people she didn't even know existed. By the time Dale's jail sentence was handed down, Nick had already put his plan into motion. Dale, meanwhile, was smug. He thought the worst was behind him. The press had moved on. The neighbors had forgotten. He was already scheming for his fresh start once he got out. Elena's heart pounded in her chest when she saw Nick's text. "It's done. He's going to prison, but it's not the one he's expecting." Her gut twisted. She didn't ask for details. Nick had his ways. He wasn't the kind of person who needed approval or oversight. Elena knew enough by now to understand that whatever Nick was doing, it wasn't legal. But it didn't matter. She wanted him gone, for good. And Nick was the man to make that happen. The clock was ticking. Dale was about to walk into a nightmare of his own making. He didn't know it yet, but his time was running out. For now, though, Elena could only wait. She didn't know exactly what was coming, but she knew it was going to be big. Bigger than anything the justice system could offer. And this time, there would be no turning back. Inside prison, Dale's bravado quickly dissolved. At first, the other inmates ignored him, dismissing him as just another weak, cocky convict. But that changed when the whispers started. Word spread like wildfire. This man had hurt children. That fact, more than any crime he'd committed, marked him. He was a target now, and the hierarchy inside prison walls doesn't forget. It started with small things. A shove in the cafeteria, a malicious comment in the yard. But as days passed, the intensity grew. Inmates who had once been indifferent started to see him as an easy mark, someone to prove a point on. They would corner him during meals, taunt him about the kids he'd harmed, and then leave him battered, his face swollen from blows that felt as though they were meant to break more than just his body. By week 3, he was already a broken man. His once cocky swagger turned into a defeated shuffle, eyes darting nervously. He began to isolate himself, retreating into the corners of the dormitory. But that only made it worse. The more he withdrew, the more they tormented him. The bullying turned to beatings. A group of men cornered him in the showers one night, leaving him barely conscious, covered in bruises and cuts. Dale was nothing now, a shell of the man who had once thought himself untouchable. Each day was worse than the last. The humiliation, the pain, the complete loss of control over his own fate. He began to break mentally. The once cold, calculating predator, now a cowering wreck. Every blow, every insult, it felt like justice served. The horror he endured was exactly what he deserved, and more. By the time the end came for Dale, no one was surprised. After weeks of escalating torment, the inevitable happened. A group of hardened criminals, tired of watching him wither, decided it was time to end the nightmare. One night, while Dale was alone in his cell, a handful of inmates cornered him. No words, no final taunts. They just went in. They took their time, slow and methodical, beating him senseless. It was more than a fight. It was the culmination of months of bottled-up rage from men who had suffered their own pain, looking for a way to make someone like Dale feel it too. By the time the guards found him, it was too late. Dale had been left a bloodied, lifeless body, twisted and broken. There were no heroics. No attempts to stop the chaos. The inmates walked away, like it was just another day. Dale's final moments weren't filled with the fight he once thought he was entitled to. There was no redemption, just a slow, inevitable collapse into oblivion. Elena and her children were left in a silence that felt too loud. The weight of the justice they'd received wasn't the kind that could be held in a courtroom. It was something different. Something dark, heavy, and final. They didn't celebrate Dale's death. The closure didn't come with relief or joy. Instead, they focused on healing, moving forward in a world that still felt jagged around the edges. Therapy was a long road. Hurt kids, and you don't walk away. You can run, you can hide, but the consequences will find you. Elena didn't regret a thing. She didn't wish for a different outcome, because in the end, there was only one truth. Justice can be a quiet thing, but it's always relentless, and for the villain who thought he could escape his deeds. His story was over, his reign of terror extinguished. It wasn't just about him paying the price, it was about making sure no one else ever did the same. The cycle of pain had ended, and it had ended with finality. That wraps up today's episode of r/Payback. If you enjoyed the ride, don't forget to subscribe for more epic stories.